Hey guys, you're listening to an episode that is a part of a series of episodes that is all about surviving in corporate America. The intention is that each episode builds into the next. So if this isn't part one and you haven't started at the beginning with part one, then I highly encourage you to go back and start from part one. Now, let's start the show. Welcome to the Trill NBA show. I'm your host, Felicia Ann Rose, a Nuha, aka the Trillest NBA you will ever know. And I'm here to help you survive and thrive in corporate America by giving you the truth and being as real as only I can be. Happy Sunday. Welcome back. If you are new to this podcast, we are in the middle of a survival guide series. So I need you to go back a couple episodes to part one, right? You want to go to that first episode where I talk about the foundations you need to make it in corporate America. And then from there, we move on through how to survive an undermining coworker, how to survive a bad boss. And actually, this is part two of a two-part episode of how to survive a bad boss. In the first part, we laid some foundational, additional things you need, like a therapist. Your documentation game needs to be strong. So that recap game, right? And then we also talked about getting a new phone cover. And if you want to know why you need a new phone cover, go back and listen to the last episode. Hint, you need to start recording some shit. So now where we left off, we started talking about the two types of bad bosses. And in the last episode, I talked about the more benign bad boss, right? And mind you, these bosses are on a spectrum. So you'll see bad behavior of one in the other and vice versa at different times. But for the most part, you can pretty much categorize the bad bosses into two. You have the one that doesn't care, right? The indifferent bad boss. We talked about that in the last episode. Now, what we didn't get to go into depth, and I wanted to take more time on, was to talk about the bad boss that is actively micromanaging, actively getting on your goddamn nerves, and actively trying to get you out of the organization. These evil people. And if you've never had a boss like this, I pray to God every day that nobody experiences the sheer bullying that this boss does, because it is hell on earth. We spend so much time at work. The last thing you need is for another human being to make it their mission to spend their energy coming for you day in and day out. Dear God, Jesus, why? Why do these people even exist? Don't y'all have something better to do? Well, clearly they don't. And so today we're going to break down what you need to do from a mental standpoint, an emotional standpoint. And I want to give you some language to use to help you stand up for yourself today against this type of boss. Now, when you're dealing with the micromanaging, trying to push you out, trying to put you on a pip, didn't want you here in the first place, boss, you really gotta stay prayed up. Step number one, if you don't have a spiritual or some kind of something that you can lean outside of yourself onto, then I need you to go figure this out. And maybe you're going through this situation with this boss because maybe the universe is trying to tell you something. I mean, when I was going through it, that's the only rationale I had because I didn't understand what I did to deserve this. So I'll give you guys my own personal example, and I'll use this personal example to show you where I went wrong and some of the things that should have been done differently. So when I was younger, before I went to business school, I was working in the Midwest. So I had left Texas for the first time and lived outside of Texas. It's crazy. And I was working for a large retail company. And I had got hired, and this was one of my interviewers. And you would just assume that all the people that interview you want to hire you. But it turns out, no, that's not how that works. So when I first started the job, I was working for this very lovely lady named, and she was really nice. And there was a learning curve. I had to learn their systems. It wasn't that I hadn't done this job in my previous role at another company. I was recruited into this company. And, you know, there's going to still be a learning curve when you're new to an organization. You have to learn the processes and the systems of that organization. So they had this software called Microsystems, I believe. It's like for inventory management. I had to learn that. I also had to learn big box retailing. I came from a different business model in my previous role. So there was a lot of new things. There was a learning curve. And was very nice, and she took the time. But unfortunately, you know, companies love to switch teams and people around all the time. So that's something you have to get used to and always be prepared for. But this was all new to me. I didn't know. And so I started reporting to a woman named I'll never forget this woman. Turns out, even though she had interviewed me, she was the only one that didn't want me to get the job. And she was outvoted. Now, 2-3 months into me starting at the company, this woman is now my manager. Y'all, when I tell y'all, I never cried so much in my life. I literally had a nervous breakdown. It was one of the worst experiences I've had in my life. This woman bullied me. I'll never forget one time she told me, she said, let's work to get you competent and confident in your role. She would do things like, there was this other woman named on the team, and bless her heart, wasn't necessarily dumb. It's just, you know, wasn't necessarily training anybody on the team. We were all new, and, you know, was her favorite though. You remind me so much of me. You just look so cute today. Oh, this and that. I mean, it was just blatantly obvious to us. And then the rest of us, she would mistreat and talk nasty to, in like that passive aggressive, nasty way. And when I would ask, well, okay, I do need help here because I'm new, I'm learning. You know, she would use that as a reason to prove that I shouldn't have been hired and that I was incompetent. Meanwhile, I would figure out things, then would run to my desk and ask me how to do things as I was figuring things out. Now I don't mind helping my coworker, and I would help. But I think what really hurt the most was that I would then get treated like I was incompetent. And y'all, this is hard because I didn't know how to stick up for myself. And I didn't know how to combat this bullying. And so what I thought to do, which was wrong, is I put my head down and I just tried to outwork everybody. But that was the wrong thing to do. Because while I was having my head down trying to outwork everybody, was going around and creating this talk track about me. And because all the people she was talking to didn't really work with me directly, they didn't see my work or what I was really doing, and they just took her word for it that I was incompetent. So by the time I realized this, I started having meetings and trying to figure out how to get away from her. And she had convinced me that I didn't know how to do this job, that I wasn't good enough. So, it's very painful when this person gets put on a pedestal by this bullying boss that you're like, actually, she's not that bright. She's struggling like everyone else. And a lot of it is because the company didn't have training for the role we were doing as merchandise analysts and managing inventory. Like, it's a very analytical role. And you need training. So none of us got the training that we needed, right? So in hindsight, what I should have been doing was building my talk track and networking, but I didn't know that then. And so what happened when I realized like, oh, I think this woman is going around saying all these bad things about me. When I finally met with like this guy, his name was, he was like the director, like he was high up. And he had been one of the people that interviewed me and hired me. Like, it's rare when a white man sees a Black woman's potential, right? So I went and had a meeting with him, and he suggested that maybe I should be an administrative assistant. Now, no knock on my admins, right? But I'm actually doing this job. I really wasn't doing a bad job. Was just painting me in a bad light. And any little mistake I made, I couldn't make any mistake. And y'all forgive me if I start crying, because this was very painful to go through because I didn't understand what was happening. Like, I worked so hard and I was working to prove myself, but this woman, like every little thing was wrong, even when it wasn't. Even when I wasn't doing things wrong, even when other people were like, oh no, that's right, she would be like, no, it's wrong. So I'll never forget this. This all culminated in a day where the buying desk that I was working on, the buyer and the buyer assistant was supposed to have something in an ad. And somehow the ad was missed. And was trying to make it my fault. Now, mind you, that's not even my job. But she made it my fault. And she said, well, if you were doing your job, you would have caught this. And because you didn't, I'm going to write you up for that. And I snapped. And I started crying. And I was so angry. And I said, you are not going to do this to me. You do not get to do this to me. And so finally, it's like I took up for myself, but all the emotional pain that I had been suffering under this woman and all the disrespectful things that she had done to me culminated to that moment. And I got in her face, but not truly in her face. I just stood up, and I stood about 3 feet from her. And I pointed at her and I said, you are not going to do this to me. And I was crying. And of course, my voice carries. So I'm sure I was loud. And it was after work, but there was one of the other buying leader, merchandise, whatever, that saw this. And she was like, Felicia, you need to calm down and all this. So then goes to HR and says she felt threatened. She felt like her life was in danger. This woman who had been bullying me this whole time. I mean, this woman was absolutely evil. One time she came to my desk and I had a bag of chips open on my desk, just regular yellow bag, potato chips. And she picked up the chips off my desk, which were not hers. She did not ask me. She sticks her nasty hand in my chips and digs some out and puts some in her other palm of her other hand. And she smirks at me. And she, to the rest of everybody, how is everybody doing today? Y'all know that's disrespectful as fuck. To like touch somebody else's food, like take somebody else's food in their face, off their desk, like. And the thing is, there was no way I could say anything, because if I said something, she would be like, oh, well, I thought these were for everybody and they were just on the corner of your desk like this. And so I didn't know. So she would have played that, or she would have been like, well, you're being petty. Like she would have turned it on me, right? I couldn't even defend myself, but that's the kind of shit she would do. And by the time, I tried to get help, she had destroyed my reputation and made it seem like I was a low performer. Even when I wasn't a low performer at all. The thing that you have to do early and often is, number one, take the emotion out of it. And I'm telling you this story because I know how hard that is. Like, I'm getting emotional now remembering what I went through. So it's going to be very difficult when you have somebody who's just so blatantly mistreating you to take the emotion out of it, because you're being abused at your job that you need because you have to pay your bills. It's not like you can just up and quit unless you're like independently wealthy. And then it's like, well, why are you working in the first place? And so I understand the emotion, but this is why you have to go to therapy. This is why you need to take the emotion out of it. Because every interaction now, you have to document, right? Recap game strong. That's a part of your documentation strategy. But then also, you got to speak up for yourself. And you can't speak up for yourself in an emotional way. Now, what I should have done about those chips, be like, hey, just want you to know, those are my chips. And you didn't ask. And I understand you may have thought that they were communal, but they're not. So next time, if you would like some of my chips, I would appreciate you asking. Okay, thanks. And I would have turned my back to her and started working on my computer. And if she had something to say, she could talk to my back. And sometimes you just have to get that blatantly, like, niggardly with it. Because it's according on the level of how this person's treating you. You have to learn the professional clap back. And you have to speak up for yourself. And you can't let this person continue to bully you in those types of ways. You call it out, you say it's what it is, it's unprofessional. And that your expectation is that you won't be treated like this again. If they say some shit to you, like how she had said to me, like, let's work to get you competent and confident in your role, I would say, I'm not sure what your intention is, but your impact is very negative. To call me incompetent is rude and it's unwarranted and unnecessary. And so what I expect from you is mutual respect. We are coworkers. Like, you just have to point blank say it is what it is in a low tone, but direct. You look them dead in the eye and let them know that you're not playing with them. That's honestly what you have to do. And if you aren't sure, ask clarifying questions. I'm sorry. Can you repeat what you said? Is that what you meant to say to me? Are you sure that's what you would like to communicate to me in this moment? Confront your bully. Let them know their behavior is not okay. And if this behavior continues, we will have to escalate. And understand, hey, you may be on your way out, but you deserve to be treated better than a piece of shit. You're a human being. No one deserves to be bullied at work. If somebody's yelling at you, stand real still, look them dead in their face, and say, when you can calm down and speak in professional tones and at professional levels, I will continue this conversation with you and walk away. Get up out the room, walk away from them, get away from them. If they try to touch you, now that's a problem. And that's where you do go straight to HR and say, this person put their hands on me and that's unacceptable. What are you going to do as a company to protect my personal space? I have been violated, because nobody should put their hands on you at work or anywhere actually, but especially at work. Now, don't argue with these people. Do not go back and forth. Say what you have to say and be done with it. If you have to walk away, walk away. But don't sit there and allow that person to control your energy. You control your energy. You control your emotions. You have that power. You can't control what they do or what they say, but you control you. These are all the things I wish I could have told myself. 10 plus, it's been well over 10 years since I worked at that job. Like I said, this was before I went to business school. But all I did was like talk to my best friend every day and cry because I didn't know what to do. I'd moved far away from home, far away from my mom, my grandma, trying to do better in my career. I felt so stuck, y'all. I felt so stuck. Sometimes you have to cry. And sometimes you just have to breathe. It's unimaginable, some of the things we go through in these corporate spaces with these white people. But if you find yourself crying every day and not wanting to get out the car and go to that job, you really got to start making a plan. Because if the organization is okay with that person mistreating you like that, even if you do have performance issues, there's nobody that should be calling you incompetent, telling you you're stupid. Like, nobody should be doing that. You're not stupid and you're not dumb. They should be trying to help you. And so the other thing you need to do is clearly, and put this in documentation, that you've asked for help and for more training. And it is on the company to make sure you have that adequately, not some BS that your boss is like, well, I sat with you for 10 minutes and I showed you how to do this. No, that's not good enough. And call that out and be like, yeah, you did this, but that wasn't enough. So you need to do more. Especially when you sit with for hours at a time. The other thing you need to really be working to do is plan and prepare. You have to get away from this boss. So you have to decide, do I want to stay at this company? So is this boss's behavior indicative of the company's culture? Or is this boss just a bad actor in a company that has a good culture? Once you make that discernment, so let's say this is a bad actor in a good company, then that's why you really have to lean into your networking so that you can get off the team, get away from that boss, and get to more fertile ground in the organization. This is where it will be helpful for you to game plan and then meet with your HR partner. And when you meet with the HR person, you say, hey, Susie, I'm just making this up, right? Hey, Susie, I really love working here. I've been here X amount of time. I could see myself having a career here for the long term. And so when I'm thinking about the things I could do next, I want to talk with you about, career pathing here at XYZ company. And then you start working with HR to figure out like, who can I go talk to? What could possibly be a good fit for me and my skill set? You know, let's say they want to say that this role isn't a good fit for your skill set. Okay, that's fine. If y'all don't believe that, that's fine. Let's find a role for me that fits my skill sets. So make sure you send an email at some off time. Maybe your boss won't read it. That hey, heads up, just want to let you know I'm meeting with HR, talk about career pathing here with XYZ company. So that way, when HR goes to them and says, blah, 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 the person came to me, yada, yada, yada. The person, if they try to say, well, I didn't know that, you can say, yes, I sent you this email the day before saying I was going to go meet with Susie in HR. Again, documentation game gotta be strong. So let's say this boss is trying to put you on a PIP, or you are on a PIP now. Ain't much you can do, dog. I'm just gonna be honest with you. And if the organization has allowed your boss to put you on a PIP, then this is the signal that they want you to leave. Your boss is finagled. No matter if the company's good or bad or indifferent, it's time for you to go. And so the best thing you can do is, one, ask for more time on the PIP. Like if they give you 30 days, ask for 60 days. If they give you 60 days, ask for 120 days. You know those objectives on that PIP are unrealistic, but still question. Like, hey, what's the expectation here? What are the things that would indicate that I've demonstrated this? Like, write it down, make it plain, drive for that clarity. All you're trying to do is buy yourself more time to find another job. Then only do 8 to 5 at that job, and then all the rest of your time is looking for another job, right? Just get out. If you think you may have an EEOC case, consult an attorney, right? Don't not sign the PIP. Just make sure you write a note that I do not agree with this, but I am signing an acknowledgement that I have received this document. So make sure you note that. Never agree with the PIP. I don't care how nice your boss is. I don't care how true it is. Never agree with the PIP. And I know this is tough, y'all. It's tough. But one thing I will say I know for sure is when these situations happen, it's because the universe is trying to make you move, but you don't want to move. So now the universe got to make you real uncomfortable. I mean, really uncomfortable. And I be looking at the universe like, you didn't have to make me that uncomfortable. Like, I got it. I was working. I was getting ready to go to business school. Like, I was moving. I was going to move. But I have to admit, in hindsight, had I not gone through that much pain, I don't think I would have moved as expeditiously. And in fact, I had kind of been dragging my feet on going back to school. So that really lit a fire under my butt to get things done. And I just want you to know that no matter how bad the situation is, it's temporary and it will all work out. But I want you to take courage to stand up to the bullies, tell them about themselves in their face, tell them their behavior is unacceptable and unprofessional in no uncertain terms. And if they want to have it out with you in HR, well, then have it out with you in HR, right? But you stay composed, you stay calm. The calmer you are, the madder that will make them. Play the game, right? Play the game. Now, in the last episode of this series next week, we're going to talk about how to survive a toxic company. So you might have a good boss and you might be in a good place, but what happens when your company is like batshit crazy and they allow crazy shit to happen, right? So think about being a female coder in a male-dominated tech company. My God. So we'll talk about that next week on the show. Until then, please, guys, take care of yourself. Be safe. If you're not working, just know the new role, it's coming. Keep at it. Keep trying. There are companies that are still hiring in the midst of a global pandemic. Think about more remote roles. Think about overseas companies that want U.S. talent. Do not give up hope. Take this time to rest a little bit if you can. But just know everything is happening in your favor. The universe is conspiring in our favor. And all this change may be painful, but we will come out stronger on the other side of this. I promise. I've been through so much. This is how this shit happens all the time. So with that said, y'all, just do your best and keep it trill. The Trill MBA Show is a Fair World Corp LLC production. Executive produced by Felicia and Rose Inuha. Sound design and editing by Chris Mann with Podshaper. Theme music is Kick Push by Ryan Little. Keep it trill every day, y'all.